What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Flea Flipper, and unfortunately this past weekend it was raining, so I was unable to actually go to the flea market since no one really sets up when it starts to rain. Even when it drizzles out there, no one really goes, so I did want to still make a video, so I decided to show you guys my entire Super Nintendo collection. So without further ado, let's get into it, and I hope you enjoy it. Thank you. So let me start off this video by saying how many Super Nintendo games I actually own, and that number would be 64 in total. And that number includes all your AAA titles like Mario, Zelda, Metroid, Star Fox, all those classics on the Super Nintendo, because I don't collect any filler. If it's not a good game, I just don't care to collect for it because it's just wasted shelf space at that point, and especially I'm not a completionist kind of guy, so I do not need every single Super Nintendo game ever created because I just don't care. I'm never going to play the bad games. And with that being said, I actually don't really care to collect complete in box games as well because I'm just trying to play these games. I mean, look at my copy of Goof Troop. It is absolutely disgusting. But do I care? No, because I just want to play this, especially 2-player with my little brother. It's really fun. I don't really care about getting a complete in box set, having the best box ever. Who cares? Just play the game. So now that you know how I collect for the system, let's go over some of my favorite games for the Super Nintendo. First game on my list would have to be Spanky's Quest by Natsume. And one of the main reasons why I like this game so much is because it's nothing like anything else on the Super Nintendo, and let me explain. Your objective in Spanky's Quest is to carefully bounce a colorful ball/bubble kind of thing until you are ready to pop it by pressing A. Once you pop it, and depending what size you bounce it to, it will explode into a number of sports balls. You do this to eliminate enemies. For example, if you bounce it the most times it can be bounced, it will turn into a basketball with the widest range of attack. While if you just throw it up in the air just one time without bouncing it and then pressing A, it will turn into a baseball. This one starts off pretty easy, but the further you get into this game, the more challenging the levels get, and it's one-hit death, so be careful. But let's check out another one of my favorite Super Nintendo games. Another one of my personal favorites would have to be Goof Troop, as I mentioned before. And in my opinion, this is probably the best 2-player game you can play on the system. Let me explain. Goof Troop is an action-adventure puzzle game where you control either Goofy or his son Max. Goofy in this game is stronger and will usually kill enemies in typically one hit, and while Max, on the other hand, is very fast.
Wanna see me run to that mountain and back? You wanna see me do it again?
To be honest, Goof Troop isn't the longest game, and you could probably beat it in one sitting if you really wanted to. But like I said in the beginning, when it comes to 2-player games on the Super Nintendo in general, it doesn't get much better than Goof Troop, so I highly recommend playing this one. Or you could just do this the whole time. Up next, we have the one and only Super Metroid. And when discussing some of the best platformers or action-adventure, mixture action-adventure platformers on the system itself, it's hard to argue against the best one ever, which in my opinion is Super Metroid. This game has a pretty dark atmosphere and it's overall just pretty spooky compared to other games on the system that are very colorful and fun. But with that being said, if you were to say this is the best Super Nintendo game on the system, I couldn't argue against you. Even though it's not my personal favorite, this is by far one of the better games. And almost 30 years later since this game was released in 1994, it still holds up today, better than almost any game on the system, so highly recommend playing Super Metroid. If you haven't already, check it out. But let's check out some of my other favorite games. Now, this is not my favorite game on the system, but it is easily in my top 3, and that is Super Castlevania 4. Now, I'm a huge Castlevania fan in general, especially the first one on the NES. That with Ninja Gaiden and Mario 3 would probably be my most played NES games. And the only reason I bring that up is because as a kid, I didn't actually have Super Castlevania 4. This was at my cousin Sean's house, so every time I went over there and I had the chance to play, you know I did. Just the fact that you can whip in every direction in this game makes this one of, if not the best, Castlevania experience. When we're talking about the best platformers on the system, I would take this over any Mario game 7 days of the week. Plus, I've never seen Mario do this. And okay, I lied. I said Castlevania is the best platformer on the system, but it doesn't even touch my favorite game ever on the Super Nintendo, and that is Donkey Kong Country 2: Diddy's Kong Quest. And before I even say why this is my favorite Super Nintendo game, I cannot be the only one that called this Diddy Kong's Quest instead of Diddy's Conquest for his whole life. Like, this is my copy I've had since I was a kid. I always called it Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy Kong's Quest. But yeah, I was today years old when I found it was Diddy Conquest. Diddy's Conquest. But with all jokes aside, there is one reason why this does circles around the first game and even the third game. I never really played the third game much because I was too busy with the first and the second, but there's one real reason why this is much better than the first, and that is Dixie. And the only reason why she is better than Donkey Kong is because she can do this and Donkey Kong cannot. And I'm not saying the first Donkey Kong Country is bad, not at all, but when compared to the second one, it's just that much better in my opinion, and that is why Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy's Conquest is my favorite Super Nintendo game. And with that being said, I do want to give a quick shout out to some honorable mentions. That would include Mario RPG, Chrono Trigger, Turtles in Time, Yoshi's Island, and Sunset Riders, just to name a few. Now that you know some of my favorite games on the Super Nintendo, let's go over some of the most expensive ones in my collection, or as I like to call it, the big hitters. When looking at the most expensive games in my collection, I decided to narrow it down to a top 5. So here's the 5. At number 5, we have Mega Man X2, which is currently going for $129.82. At number 4, we have Kirby's Dream Land 3, which is going for $159.94. Number 3, we have Incantation, which is currently going for $179.16. At 2, we have Chrono Trigger at $239.85. And to top it all off, at number 1, we have Earthbound at $376. Now, in my opinion, if you really want to play these games, you might as well just go with an emulator. But if you're a true collector, there's nothing better than actually having the physical cartridge in your hand. You can play it whenever you want. That's the kind of collector I am. Sorry to disappoint. But yeah, those are the most expensive games I actually own in my personal collection. And if I did have to recommend 2 of these games to play, it would most likely be Earthbound and Chrono Trigger, 2 of the best RPGs on the Super Nintendo, and you can't really go wrong with either or, so yeah. But you have seen the expensive games that are currently in my collection, but what about the games I still need or want? Here is every game on my wish list for the Super Nintendo in no specific order. We got Pocky and Rocky, Mega Man X3, Mega Man 7, Castlevania Dracula X, Evo Search for Eden, Sparkster, Harvest Moon, Demon's Crest, Adventures of Batman and Robin, Dragon View, Casper, Biker Mice from Mars, and last but not least, Knights of the Round, just to name a few. And out of all these games on the wish list, I want Dracula X the most because I'm a huge Castlevania fan, like I said. That's about everything I have to say about my Super Nintendo collection, but I do want to end this video by telling you a quick story about my favorite Super Nintendo memory. So to tell you this story, let me take you back to when I was just a wee child in about 2008, 9, 10, I don't know the specifics, but this is when I was a kid, and there used to be this game store called Play and Trade. To give you guys a frame of reference for the prices back then, I remember buying a Dreamcast with a controller and Sonic Adventure for $15 back then, so yeah, prices back then were pretty crazy. But to this day, I still remember walking in there with my dad one day and seeing a copy of Super Mario RPG for $49.99. That was a lot of money for a kid back then, especially when I was used to buying games for like 10, 15, at the most $20. But because I had the best dad ever, he did promise that he would buy me that game, just not today. And it was only a couple weeks later when my dad was pricing a job and we were right around the corner from Play and Trade. So guess where he brought me after he was done? So he handed me a $50 bill and said something probably like, "Go buy that game, Joe," or something like that. So you know what I did? I grabbed that 50 and I ran to Play and Trade. And he actually was just waiting in the truck. He didn't even go into the store with me. I was just supposed to run in, get Mario RPG, and then run back out. But when I walked into Play and Trade and went to the glass display where Mario RPG was, I saw a complete in-box copy of Zelda the Ocarina of Time and Super Metroid, each $19.99. So in that instance, I had to make an executive decision. Was I gonna stick with Mario RPG, or was I gonna get both a complete in-box copy of Zelda Ocarina of Time and Super Metroid? There was truly only one right answer. So after I made my decision, I ran out to the car to show my dad that I didn't end up getting Mario RPG, but I got Zelda Ocarina of Time complete in box and Super Metroid instead, and I saved him $10, so I think I'm the best son ever. But he was the best dad ever. And Dad, if you're watching this up in heaven, I want to thank you for everything you ever did for me. You're the best. And this copy of Super Metroid that I showed you guys earlier is the exact copy I got at Play and Trade that day, and I will never get rid of this game. And it still holds the original save file, which is kind of crazy. This game was released in 1994. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that short story about why I love the Super Nintendo and why it means so much to me. Hopefully we get back to more regular Flea Flipper episodes. Fingers crossed it doesn't rain. But as always, guys, I want to thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Peace.